we've implemented the button that's going to be used to start the process of saving a new inquiry. At the moment it doesn't do anything other than log in the console that we have clicked the button, but that's actually a good start. What we're going to do is we're going to use this button to launch a page where we can put the details of a new client into a form. Now we happen to have a perfectly good form that has all of the properties set up for an inquiry, so we might as well use that form but treat it in a slightly different way. So we will use the button here to open this form here, but without the details used to display a client. So what we'll do next is we'll develop the onAdd click so that first it takes us to the detail page. We've done this before. In fact, you'll see the code just here. And I have now copied it over from here to here. But what I'm not doing is I'm not passing with it a nav param of an inquiry ID. I'm just opening the page. Simple. Nothing else. So how will the system know whether we're using this form to add a new client or to edit an existing one? Well, when we pass from the item click, which is a client, we pass this ID. And when we don't, when we're just pressing the button which is used to navigate, we don't press anything that transfers an inquiry ID. We don't push that nav param forward. So we can check for that and act accordingly as to whether it finds an inquiry ID or not. I suppose the first thing to do is to check whether anything is working. So File, Save All. It will open up on our home page again. Nothing's drastically broken, so I do that. And our page opens as required. Our detail page opened, and you will see that it has no data in it. And this is exactly the state we want to find it in when we want to add a new client. We don't want to have to clear out input boxes or clear out anything that's from old data or existing data that's of no use to us when we're adding a new client. So what we're going to do is we're going to work inside the detail TS page. Nearly clicked it. And we're going to work with the events which are in here. Before I start to work with the data on the new form, what I want to do is I want to go to the service, which the model, which is where we define the pattern of data that we get. Now you will note that on this form there is no ID. We have to manage the IDs, and what we've done is we've manually entered them here, and we have to automate the assignment of IDs so that we can manage them and that they can be assigned at the point of the save, not before. So when we're getting the data, we get the date, the name, the type, the budget and the phone from the form, but we don't get the ID. So if we attempt to work with the data that is an inquiry, we will find we get an error because the ID is missing. So I'm just going to change that model first, and then we go back to detail.ts, and we're going to check where we actually get the inquiry ID so that we can check it when it comes forward from the other page. And it's these two lines of code that we're interested in here. The inquiry ID is assigned a value. It's first initialized with a value which is nav params get inquiry ID, which is the value that was passed forward from the home page. So before we use that inquiry, we can check whether it exists by wrapping code in here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do a simple if construction, and if it's forward, we'll run this, and if it's not there, we will set up an empty object that will satisfy the needs of the system. So let's build the test that's going to see whether we got an inquiry ID. So we're using a simple if inquiry ID, which is here, we'll do this, else if there is no inquiry ID, we'll do that. So it's a fairly simple structure. You'll have seen if else's before. So what we need to do is that if we have an inquiry ID, we can operate in the same way as we had assigned the values before. So we take it from there and put it in there. So I'm just going to save this. Now there will be some errors coming up in this process for a minute or two. So we've now got that if there is an inquiry ID, it will carry it forward. So let's just check that. Yes, we've got that. So what we want to do is that if there is no inquiry ID, we want to build a dummy inquiry that can be a copy that can be used in the save process. This inquiry equals, and then we'll give it the fields that are needed. Now it started to complain already because it says, look, this inquiry is not right, date's missing. It just checks the first and moans about the first one. So what we have to do is we have to set up data that fits the model. And what we'll do is that for all of the strings, we'll put an empty string. And for for the budget, we can actually put a number. So that's quite useful. So that's what we're going to do next. So I've typed the code in for the dummy inquiry that will be used to carry the data forward for the save process. So the inquiry is date blank string, or empty string, sorry, name empty string, type empty string, budget's a number so we can assign a 0 value to it, and phone, which is an empty string. So that's us got a dummy object that we can start to use in the save process. So we need to change the onSave code, because what currently happens is that this always does an update which replaces an object that we've already found. But what happens if we don't already have an object, that this is a new object? So we can use exactly the same strategy as we just did and test for an inquiry ID which exists in the scope that we've got. And if that test is true, then we will update the inquiry, but otherwise we'll add a new function which isn't written yet called add inquiry, and that will be written inside the inquiry service in the same way as update was written inside there. So it's really straightforward. So what we'll do is first write the test. So I've put in the code for the test on save. If this .inquiry .id, the inquiry that's in the current scope, is found by this command or contextual word. So if that's true, then what we will do is we will update, and I can do that by grabbing this and putting it there. But if it's not true, what I'll do is I'll copy this and just change the function that's being used, the method that's being called. I put it here. And we're going to do add inquiry. That's why I'm saying we're getting errors for a few minutes, because we haven't built everything. But we have now an option that if it's an old inquiry that already exists, we'll update it as we did before. But if it's a new inquiry, we'll add inquiry, which is a new method that's going to be created in the inquiry service. I'm going to break that there, and we'll do the rest of this process in the next video.